the sheer amount of debt that Americans are in is actually really, really mind-boggling. And in all my videos in the past, I've been saying that, hey, economy's gonna get better. We're gonna get some relief come January, new president, and we're gonna kind of roll with it, and just people will have more money and all that other stuff. And what I've not really articulated on is that it's gonna take so much time till we actually see that it's gonna get a lot better. And how long? Well, we're gonna watch a video right now that I have from TikTok, and we're gonna chat about it afterwards to get some clarity on it.
I am currently, are you ready? $145,533 in debt. That's cute, huh? It's so cute. 2 car loans. There are some student loans in there, and a personal loan, and then consumer debt, credit card debt. So in the last 6 months, I think we've paid off about $7,000.
I also have a $7,992 student loan. I also still owe $55,829 on my car. In total, I have about $100,000 worth of debt. If you're anything like me, you haven't made any credit card payments in over 6 months.
Okay, so that's kind of all we got to know, because then she goes on and says, I'm doing this to be accountable and all that other stuff. But the key takeaway from this video is that she's $145,000 in debt, and she paid off a few $1,000s in the last 6 months. So if she's going to go down that path and saying, you know what, I'm going to start tackle this way more aggressively, that's going to really put a damper on people that are actually in the service industry, that are eating out and doing all that. So it's a very, very two-bladed issue, right? Yes, it's great for her that she's going to cut down all these unnecessary expenses, like going out, eating, maybe getting a cheaper car, doing all that other stuff. But what she's doing is she's actually taking away from spending that the United States, as a consumer-based economy, is actually needed in order for other people to have jobs, right? So you're cutting down, then everybody else is cutting down, and then we're going to be in even a worse spot, right? And so what I'm seeing is that a lot of people are saying, you know what, I got to start tackling my debt. And the comment section on that video is absolutely interesting, where people said, oh, I have $80,000 in credit card debt. Oh, I paid off $200,000 over 6 years, and I've lived off of rice and beans and noodles, and like these 90-cent noodle packs, but now I'm debt free and I can do whatever I want to do. And some of these things that I'm looking at in these comment sections are just like, wow, if all of America is going to say, you know what, we're going to start tackling our credit card debts, our debts, then all of a sudden what's going to happen is that a lot of unnecessary spending isn't going to happen. Like when you're looking at the Walmart and Target and all these little China-made stuff that they import, like, oh, they import little figures, you put on your counter. They import all these other things that aren't necessarily that you need for life, right? They just make it more comfortable, new couches, all that other stuff. It's all going to come to a halt, right? Because let's say I was like, do I need to upgrade my couch? Be nice to get a recliner, but you know what? I don't need it, so I'm not going to get it. So that's going to put furniture stores out of business. And I looked it up, and there's been a few of them that actually went out of business in Ohio. They've cut production and all this other stuff. So now, when we're looking at all these things, we're looking at the whole big problem as a whole, is there's got to be a fine balance where interest rates come down and people can still go out and spend money and do activities and not feel like, oh my gosh, I'm living paycheck to paycheck. Because as you're watching some of these videos, people are saying, oh, I'm making $150,000 and I'm living paycheck to paycheck. And then they're like, what are you driving? Oh, I drive a Tahoe, a Chevy Tahoe. And when you're looking at what a Chevy Tahoe costs, no wonder you're spending about $2,000 on the car without going anywhere. It's $1,500, and I got it up here. It's about $1,500 in just payments, and then insurance, and then registration, and then some other fees that are associated with it. So now you're like, okay, I'm spending $2,000 on that, that is a lot of money if you calculate it for the percentage, for the amount that you actually use the car for. Because a lot of Americans, they drive to work and then they drive back. If you're in the car 4 hours a day, okay, fine. You know, you're almost living in it at that point, right? Because, you know, you work for 8 hours and then what else is there? So it's like, yeah, you can get a nicer car. But if you're not doing that, and if you're not like super commuting, you can get away with a way cheaper one, because all this debt just starts piling up. And then we're saying, oh, the economy's gonna get better. How is the economy gonna get better if nobody has money? Nobody has any credit left on their cards that are maxed out. And now they're saying, oh, we just get another one, we just get another one. At one point, you can't do it. At one point, your income is too tapped out for them to issue another one. You become too risky, and either they're gonna give you an absurd amount high of interest rate, or they're just gonna say it's not worth it. Because if you're gonna file for bankruptcy, do something else, they gotta eat some of that cost, right? And so now they're gonna say, oh, if you're not gonna pay it off, then, and we gotta eat that cost, so we need to make it worth our while, so other people will then pick up the tab for you, right? That's how it works. That's how insurance works, right? The collective pays into it, and then it bails out some of them, and some of them are just like, now we gotta file for bankruptcy and do all that, because it's just how the system has been done and has been generating money forever now with these credit cards that are so easy to get to. And when I lived in Switzerland, this is interesting, because when I lived in Switzerland, I got a credit card, a Visa one, and they said, so how much of a credit limit do you want? And I said, well, you know, $4,000 or $5,000, and I was making about $6,000 a month. They said, oh, we can't do that. We can give you about $4,000 or something, $4,500. That's the max we can give you. And then I said, what if I go on vacation and I need to double it? They said, oh, or get a limit increase. They said, oh, we can't do that. But what we can do is we can put another $4,500 from you as collateral, and then we'll extend the limit to $8,000. And I said, well, I have a 45, that should be 9. It's like, that's too risky for us. So we'll just take another 4,500 and we'll increase it to about 8. So I was like, oh man. So they're way less risk adverse because they cap credit card interest. And so in the United States, where credit interest is like 29%, they can take gambles. They can give Bobby, they can give Jimmy, they can give all these credit lines to people and say, if some of them don't pay and some of them do pay at 29%, we'll make our money back. And now you're like, well, you're talking about all this. Have you ever, had credit card debt? And I'd say for my personal one, not really. I've never really carried a balance. Maybe there was a month where I just made the automatic minimum payment and I kind of forgot, or I always paid the minimum or the statement balance. And then on the other hand, on my business, there's been months where I was waiting for clients to pay me, and there was back and forth, 30 days, 60 days, where I had a balance on my card because a business needs capital to run. And so I say, yeah, I've paid interest in credit cards, not personal ones, more business related, but I did pay. I am considered one of these people that have carried balances before, right? So, and it's a nice handy tool when you're utilizing it correct way, I believe. I'm not saying don't go out and get one. I think they're very handy, especially if you can defer payment for 30 days and then your client has to pay you in 30 days. So you kind of get an extension on all that kind of stuff. And the banks basically take some of the cost for materials or whatever it is for you to then get paid. And that's kind of how I think it was intended to be used. And when you have expenses like, oh, let's go and buy water heaters, and I had to do it for my Airbnb, I think we had to do stuff, and then that month I had absolutely no income because there was a whole bunch of stuff broken. I think there was the auto level was broken. We had to buy copper pipes, we had to rent equipment, and we had to do all these repairs on it while it wasn't really generating any revenue. And so rather than using my cash, I said, you know what, I'll pay the interest on it and for a month, till it's back up and running, so have stable income again. And that's kind of what we did. And then after, I think the repair took about 3 weeks. When it was up and running, we then paid it. And I think we had to pay some interest, but that's kind of it. Because it's just so crazy when you're going to look at the time from, okay, I have a debt problem. Now we're going to look at, oh, how long is it going to take me to pay it off? And one thing is that your income is a huge, huge factor, right? So if you have 10, 20, 30, 40, $50,000 in debt, and you're making 200, 300,000 a year, it's not that worrisome, right? But if you're making 60, 70,000 and you have $60,000 in credit card debt, you might see why that might be a problem, right? Because it just kind of snowballs. If you like Dave Ramsey or not, he says the debt snowball. It can go either way. You can pay it off faster, or it can accumulate way faster than you think, and it's going to get out of hand. And I don't agree with everything he says, where he's like, oh my gosh, you got to pay up the smallest to largest to get those wins. I'm like, hey, I think you should get the most amount of interest done away, because that is basically just lighting your money on fire and getting it and not getting anything in return for it. And so that is an absolute dilemma. If you have 29% interest, and I always tell people, like, hey, they tell me, that's me, should I buy a house? And then I always say, how much credit card debt you got? Because if you're gonna have a shit ton of credit card debt and your lender approves you, because that's a business too, right? They want you to buy, they want you to do all that. And so they might look over a few things just to make sure that, hey, we're gonna, oh, we can exclude that, we can include that, and I'm not a lender, right? But I've seen it done where all of a sudden your house payment is about 30 or 40% of your take-home pay. And all of a sudden, when it's 40, 50% of your take-home pay, and then you have another car loan on top of that, you have no more wiggle room for emergencies. And you do need money for emergencies, right? You do need it if you're gonna get laid off, or you gotta do something else, and it's like, I just don't have the money right now to do anything. Or you have like, hey, I need a car repair done or something else. And you don't want to rely on your credit card to be your saving grace when you're like, I really need this right now, and you got to do it, and then like, we don't take credit cards, you got to write a check or something, right? Very small cases, but they do happen. And so it's always nice to have an emergency fund. And the recovery time of all these things is just mind-boggling. So it's like, let me just make a video today about it, because it's just crazy when I say people, oh, we're gonna see a recovery in the economy, and then people come on, when are we gonna see the crash? Well, as long as people always have new lines of credit, as long as there's people keep doom spending, as long as there's people that are still gonna participate in the race of, I need to have a nicer car, I need to have more decorative interior, and I need to have a nicer desk, and I need to have a nicer couch, and I need to have a nicer desk, and I need a nicer light. And then they go to Home Depot and they buy random stuff that they don't really need, and you just see the clutter in the garage stacked high. And I know people like that, and then it just gets out of control, because most likely you're not going to need it. And that's why I'm like, just calm it down. There's not going to be a crash when you're taking it slowly and thinking about your decisions. But if you're gonna be running around like a headless little chicken trying to do stuff, then all of a sudden you're like, you know what, there might be a crash, because you can't keep spending and then say, you know what, now it's time to kind of pump the brakes. And we saw that with the government, right? The government said, economy's going on overdrive, everybody's spending like crazy, let's tighten the interest rates. Now we're seeing all these layoffs. And so it doesn't always work out. It doesn't always work out. When the government says, when the Fed says, we got to tighten it in, reel it in, then all of a sudden we see who's been skinny dipping and who's not. And that's a quote from Warren Buffett, right? So we're seeing that. And now we're going to see the next 6-8 months, we're going to see who's doing good and who made some really poor choices. Because a lot of people got their car repoed. A lot of people did overspend. And I'm looking for a car for Allie, so that's going to come when I'm going to chat about that. And I've talked to a lender about interest rates, and they said they had people with 29% car loan interest. Those people never licked a stamp. They never paid anybody. So now you're looking at it like, hey, if you are that type of person that's like, oh my gosh, 29% car loan interest, you guys need to drive super cheap cars because you're robbing yourself from your future. And I didn't think I explained that enough in my video just now, that it's not just that you take America, you know, like the whole state, your local economy, that you're not helping them out. You're also robbing yourself from your own best future when you have 29% interest, because 29% interest is just legal robbery. So let me know what you think about all this. Let me know in the comments below, and connect with me on LinkedIn and subscribe, like. This would really help me out. So if you have a topic, let me know in the comments below. I'll read every comment, and I really appreciate you.